In 1922, a world-famous psychic opened his safe to find that a 3,200-year-old mummified hand had suddenly grown new flesh. But as I started digging into the story of the Princess Meketaten, I realised the supernatural warning wasn't the only thing that didn't add up. In 1890, William John Warner cured a sheikh from malaria. The sheikh was so happy, he rewarded Warner with a grisly artefact, one mummified hand of an Egyptian princess. Egypt was all the rage at the time, you see, and members of high society liked to obtain the relics of the dead of ancient Egypt to have them on display or to show off at parties. Unwrapping mummified remains as entertainment was quite the showstopper. Warner's wife, however, was not entertained by the relic, particularly when she heard the story behind it. King Akhenaten of Egypt, quite possibly the father of the well-known ruler Tutankhamun, had a disagreement with one of his daughters regarding religion and ordered a horrific punishment for her: brutal violation and murder by his priests. They then removed her right hand to be buried in a different location to her body. This was poorly received, to put it mildly, by the people of Egypt. If the princess's body was not intact at burial, she could not enter paradise. And so Warner places the relic in a safe and forgets about it for a while. Years later, in October 1922, Warner and his wife reopened the safe. It's not said why or if there was something in particular that changed his wife's prior opinion on the matter. Perhaps they were looking for something else. What they found, however, was the hand with an age of 3,200 years had changed from a mummified relic to something unexpected, softened with new flesh. His wife is put out and said, or rather screamed, they must get rid of it, and Warner did not disagree. But when we look behind the tale for sources, a deep well of information that contradicts this narrative opens right up. From the opening sentence alone, I have notes to add. William John Warner, who called himself Count Louis Le Warner de Hammond and used a pen name of Cheiro, was born on November the 1st, 1866 in Dublin, Ireland. He used Cheiro as it's short for chiromancy or palmistry, the reading of palms to predict a person's future. He clearly thought himself the protagonist of all his stories, a clairvoyant, a psychic healer, and I've popped some choice reading in the description below so you too can read his self-aggrandizing oeuvre at your leisure. Suffice it to say, he was a showman, and he made his living predicting the lives of the elite and famous. Warner wasn't married in 1890, so the mentioned wife is an unknown. He did marry Katie Bilsborough in 1920, however, so from this point on we'll use her name in the latter part of the tale. Katie was also referred to as Countess Mina Hammer, Mina being her middle name. I have been unable to locate any information on the sheikh in question, and a cursory glance at Akhenaten's Wikipedia entry and the ensuing sources does not suggest any such thing happened. The only source, as is becoming alarmingly regular, is the Weekly World News and Rob Robbins, with the world's greatest ghost, which I call WGG, simply repeating the story and actually copying it verbatim in some parts. It's only fair to point out WGG does thank Rob Robbins for his contributions at the start of the book, so I'm hoping that means at least it's not plagiarism. Warner, on the other hand, in his guise as Cheiro, the original source of the tale, doesn't mention a sheikh. Instead, he has a completely different setup for the princess in question, and gives her name Meketaten. It's thought Meketaten died from a plague tragically young, and whilst her father may not have been the most shining example of humanity, he is only claimed to have behaved in the manner described in the Weekly World News. I think that's a big problem, but it's not the subject of this video, but it is something I'll come back to in the future. Converse to Robin's interpretation, Warner said the princess was actually fully in support of her father, and she was alone in that amongst her siblings. She even raised an army to fight for him. She was killed in battle and buried. When visiting Karnak, Egypt before the advent of the First World War, Warner was told the story by his guide and was informed he was something along the lines of the chosen one, in that he was given Meketaten's mummified hand in order for the hand to travel the earth and eventually be reunited with her mummified remains. A link about the princess is in the description if you would like to read more about her and her family. But if you have any sources claiming the story's described events happened, share what you know in the comments. Whether she died of plague or battle, Warner saw an opportunity to turn this princess's tragedy into his own supernatural stage. The only way to get shot of the hand, it was decided, would be to give a proper funeral send-off, and they chose the night of the 31st of October, and I suspect that would be because it's a superstitious story. The veil between the living and the dead is the thinnest on that night, but only in places where it's actually Halloween, I imagine. Having started writing a letter to Lord Carnarvon, apparently a lifelong friend, Warner placed the hand in a fireplace and read something from the Egyptian Book of the Dead. I don't know what passage the book does not elaborate. As Warner closed the book, a great clap of thunder was heard and the house was plunged into darkness as the door opened suddenly with a gust of wind. The couple found themselves on the floor, an abrupt cold seeping over them. In the doorway a figure appeared, and as Warner would have it, she wore the royal apparel of old Egypt with the serpent of the house of the Pharaohs glittering on her tall headdress. Her right arm was missing its hand. The figure moved to the fireplace, where it seemed she retrieved the hand, as in the moment after she had disappeared along with the horrific relic. They never saw her again. But again, this is the account from the Weekly World News via WGG. Warner's own account under his pseudonym Cheiro is somewhat different and will have you scratching your head over what the aforementioned publications were up to. So as I said earlier, Warner stated he was gifted the mummified hand from a guide at Karnak. He brought it to the US, and as in the first version, it was decided the hand had to go into the fireplace because it appeared inexplicably revived. During the process of burning the hand, Warner and Katie saw the apparition of Meketaten. Now the day after, Warner says the tomb was discovered, but in the following year of 1923, Meketaten appeared again to Warner with the warning it would be death for Carnarvon if the expedition proceeded. It was at this point, I imagine, the letter was written to Carnarvon, but I don't know that for sure. I'm still hunting for a digital scan of Warner's 1930 or 1934 account. If anyone in the community has access to a copy, let's talk in the comments. It was 4 days after the disturbing apparition had appeared when Warner read Carnarvon's Egyptian expedition had found the tomb of the pharaoh Tutankhamun, and they were set to enter it, heedless of the alleged warning over the threshold. Warner and Katie had suffered from their earlier encounter and were in hospital, apparently recovering from severe shock. From there, Warner sent a letter to Carnarvon, and perhaps that's the one from earlier, I'm just not clear on this, but imploring Carnarvon with the following. I know now the ancient Egyptians had knowledge and power of which today we have no comprehension. In the name of God, I beg you take care. Obviously that letter was not heeded. I'll be discussing the fate of Carnarvon and the Tutankhamun expedition in the next video, but let's wrap this part up with Warner the Chiromancer first. I've spent weeks digging through the archives for Warner's letter to Carnarvon, but frustratingly I could not find it. It does make me doubt Warner's claim if his theatrics didn't already put me off. And to be honest, I'm discounting the Weekly World News and the World's Greatest Ghosts entirely, given that the history and facts were even worse there than in Warner's original story, which was bad enough already. Have you ever come across a cursed artefact or a premonition story in your own local history that just doesn't add up? Tell me about it in the comments. I'm always looking for the next trail to follow. Perhaps not surprisingly, this wasn't the last time Warner turned a tragedy into his own personal stage. We'll be looking at his unsinkable claims very soon, but first we need to finish what we started in Egypt. Join me next time as we journey to the Valley of the Kings for the Curse of the Pharaohs. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Until then, stay hauntingly honest.